Welcome to the newest podcast in the century, the Resilient Riches podcast, where the Klymans are going to be talking about some of the most successful people in the world and what that moment was that made them successful. The people that we're talking to have overcome significant obstacles and made true success in their life. Now, success we don't define just as in terms of money, but we define success in successful in whatever they chose to achieve in life. Being successful does not necessarily mean you're rich. Being successful means that you've made an impact. Being successful means that you are rich in spirituality. Being successful means that you're rich in your family and your love and in your relationships and everything like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the values and the defining moment of each of the most successful people in the world and find out how they did it and how they're able to teach other people to do the same. The podcast is going to be me and my father together, and we're going to talk about our story, where we came from, and how we're able to connect with so many people across the world, so many different spectrums, and how we found success in such a short amount of time by owning our defining moment in our lives and being able to take that position and being able to relate to others. So first, I'd like to introduce my father, David Klyman, partner of Klyman Financial.
Hi, Yair. Thank you for having me, and it's exciting to get it started with the new Resilient Riches podcast. It's been a long journey, but looks like we're getting towards the end. And I would even add to what you're saying, and I would say that we're talking to people that have overcome the natural reluctance to take charge of their life and to move forward. That's who we're looking at. It, whether it doesn't necessarily translate into financial gain, but it could be anywhere that you're having that gain and that you're overcoming those obstacles that life naturally puts in front of you. That's just what occurred to me as you were chatting.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's billions and billions of people across the world, but only a few people actually stand out. Now, from these people, they always go through this one crystallizing moment. And if they grew up in the streets where they were poor, or regardless of what their station was, all of a sudden, there's always that one outlier that really made it. That's how we feel for ourselves, that we went, instead of being stuck in the position that we thought we would be in, we're going to take that position and we're going to push ourselves to the next level to never be like we were before. One thing that I know about you is you're over 60, and something that I've always said is that there's few people in the world that are able to reinvent their career multiple times. And most people, when they're in their 30s or 40s, they choose their career path and they go, this is all I know and I'm going to stay to it. You've reinvented your career path. So tell us a little bit about that story, and tell us why you're actually able to do something like that, and what really pushes you and what really motivates you.
Well, as you said, I have had multiple careers, starting off in insurance years and years ago. And I know you don't want me to go on a long tangent of discussion.
We only have
about everything I've done.
We don't have a year. People won't listen.
Correct. So taking that in mind, I have had multiple careers. But I would think it's really dependent on two functions. One is you're looking for that next challenge, and after a while, when you're doing something, you sort of become complacent, and that was something that I never liked. To be that complacency. You get good at something, you want to move to the next level, so you want to take that challenge, and whether that challenge is in what you're currently doing, or maybe you've topped out at that and there's nowhere further to go, you want to make a move and go somewhere else. And I think what you're looking at, Yair, we're talking about here is not to let the fear of the unknown and the uncertainty of failure stop you from taking the next step that is what you should be doing, is know what is the next right step for you. Not let that uncertainty and that fear of uncertainty and the unknowing stop you.
Yeah, for me, when so how we grew up incredibly poor compared to our community. We grew up Orthodox.
I wouldn't say incredibly poor.
You wouldn't say it, but I did, because you didn't grow up incredibly poor, because I was growing up. You were already older, so you were grown at the point, but I was growing up. So you
always had a food on the table, always had a roof over your head, always went to school.
It just mattered who owned the roof and who did it. It didn't matter who owned the roof.
It didn't matter. You had the roof over your head.
So I always viewed it as there's a lot of people around me who are really, really successful, and I always wanted to be like them. And then as you start building wealth and you start building success, you realize, they're actually not as successful as you thought to be. I remember there was this basketball coach, and he was a big lawyer, and everyone was so excited, so nervous to talk to him. Then all of a sudden he's calling me 15 years later, he's calling me for financial advice. He's calling me for questions about his retirement and his life insurance and his long-term care. So it's pretty interesting how things kind of go full circle. And you're actually able to take these community experiences that you have, and people look at you very differently than you look at yourself. So the fear is that, oh, they will think I'm a fraud, or oh, they will know the real me. But in the end of the day, people don't actually see that, and people don't actually care.
They don't care.
They don't care. They just want someone that they love, and someone that they trust, and someone that actually cares about them, and someone that they can relate to and has the same values. So when you're talking to people and you're starting and you're building, and even if you've grown and you've gone from this point, and it's a common thing. So we have someone who's going to be coming on the podcast, sold his company for $400 million. He bought a house for $6.5 million. He walked away with maybe, I think, 60 or 70 million, bought a house for $6.5 million. And he says to me, he goes, yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable in my house. And I go, why? He goes, because they'll think I'm a fraud. I go, what do you mean you're a fraud? You just sold a company for $400 million. You walked away with like $60, $70 million. What are they're going to think you're a fraud? He goes, yeah, they're going to think I'm a fraud. I go, you know what you should keep doing? Never change your t-shirt, never change your style. But if you like the house, enjoy the house.
Well, we get that all the time. Like we're talking to people. Oh, and somebody will come up. We like to we have a 2-step process. We do first our financial fact find, then the second step, we come back and make whatever recommendations. How many times people say, oh, I have no money. and then they'll go, well, I've got 50,000 in this account, and I've got 125,000 in that account. Oh, yes. And I have another account. Then we come up to the same, and when you put it all together and you put it down on a simple spreadsheet, they got maybe $1 million. They're not so poor, not as poor as they thought they were.
No,
but a lot of it was go on with in your head. And what I would say to you also, when you're when you're an older person, you're grown up, come back to the house that you lived in. He says, oh, it's so much smaller than what I thought it was. Like I thought it was such a huge place when I was growing up, but now I come back, I'm grown. It's so much smaller. And I would say, you think that you were so poor when you were growing up, but really, I don't think, maybe compared to whoever you were comparing to, but compared to like poor people in Africa, I don't think you were that.
I'll give you a good example of how we grew up. So whenever we wanted to go out and get food, and we would get an allowance for the week, my allowance was $7. The amount of times that I got my allowance was 0 times. So my allowance was I was allowed to get $7, but I never really was able to get 7. So
it was the potential.
It was the option of the $7. So when you say I wasn't or my friends got $7, I didn't even get $7. So I had to work, and
the potential.
I had to work, and I had to build resilience, and I had to build myself to do something where I cannot settle. And I've spoken to so many people, and they all go, oh, how are you able to do this? How are you able to do this? I go, I got nothing else to do. I don't know how to sit back and relax, because in the end of the day, the numbers, the expenses keep coming. You got to just keep pushing. You got to keep building. And I can't sit complacent, which is such an amazing opportunity where we live. We live in New York City. It's one of the greatest cities in the world. We live in a town and a city that has so much opportunity, and we're just scratching the surface. So we were like, oh, well, you made it in your career. I go, what do you mean? I'm just warming up. I haven't even started my career. What are you talking? I'm like 6-7 years into working.
Well, I would say, yeah, you're probably more into your career. And let's go back to when you were in high school and you made mom go to Costco and buy the Snapples.
It wasn't high school. It's elementary school.
Elementary school. Is it why? Okay.
Yeah.
It's elementary school, even more so. It was TABC.
No.
And it made mom go to Costco, get the Snapple, and you would bring it to school and then sell it to.
Well, I had to buy off the teachers.
And then you had to give them a discount so that they wouldn't rat you out. But then when things got, competition started, you started bringing in ice also, so that you could offer it cold.
It wasn't really fun. So, but I did enjoy. I made a lot of money. I remember I was making $100 a week. It was like crazy. I bought the newest BlackBerry
phone. You didn't need my $7.
Yeah, exactly. It's because I didn't have it, because there was no option on the table.
It's all about no options. But everything what you've got to do, and that really comes back to what we were talking about, and being resilient riches. Is you've got to do what you've got to do, and not let the fear overcome, so that you could take that next step.
Yeah, and now that I, thank God, have taken some success in my career, and built something that actually is tangible and can be sold, and really done really well, and have some great clients and great friends behind us and colleagues. I'm working more on giving back and building riches in other ways. So right now, due to what's going on in Israel, we're actually, for people to understand, we're actually writing a Torah in Israel, and we're going to finish it.
Well, what's a Torah? What
So
is it?
so it's the Old Testament. It's a very big honor to be able to write something like this. It costs about anywhere around $60,000 to $70,000. And
just to clarify, Yair, I mean, the Torah scrolls that we read from in the synagogue on Saturday mornings, it doesn't have any punctuation. The person has to memorize it, and it has to be written like it was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. No technology. It's something that's been passed down from generations, and it's quite a skill for someone to do, and quite expensive.
Yeah, and so it's anywhere between $60,000 to $70,000. We're gonna write in Israel, so there's additional merits and deeds that are in Israel to protect our soldiers. And these were soldiers when I was in the army, and when I finished off as a sergeant, I was actually stationed on the Gaza border, and I met a lot of the families that were killed and were butchered and raped, and all these people that we're praying for every single day. We're doing everything we can. We're speaking to some of the most incredible people who are there. We spoke to somebody the other week, and she said to us, she was a survivor. And I said, "Are you going to go back now that your houses have been burned?" And she goes, "Where else would I go?"
Not just that, she says, "Of course I'm going to go back."
It was not even a question. It was.
But yeah, why don't you explain a little bit about what you meant? You said you were part of the Israeli army. For maybe not everyone knows what that entails, and how is it American is able to go to Israel and become part of the army?
So I've been speaking a lot on Fox News and Newsmax and a lot of different media outlets on what this concept is. So the Israeli army has a program called the Lone Soldier Program, and it's volunteers, it's people from around the world that feel such a strong affinity to the Jewish nation that fly to Israel to actually fight and serve alongside the Israelis. Now, when I say Israelis are not just Jews. Israelis are Muslims, Christians, Hindu, Druids, anything that you could possibly think of is there. So when I served in my time in the army, there was a unit, and you start off in one base, and there was 53 other countries of soldiers that flew in to volunteer, which was really, really incredible. And it shows the spirit of what's going on in Israel. People are like, "Oh, they're such a tough army. They're so strong. They're so this and so that." But why are they so strong? And the reason is because they're not an army in the Middle East and alone. They're the army of the entire world, and the entire world understands their cause and understands what they're doing. And that's why they're so strong. And that's why there's so much support for them. And right now they're in the lines of fighting terrorism. They're not fighting it just for Israel's sake. They're fighting it for humanity's sake. But
so I think one of the areas, I mean, people are looking and thinking, oh, we're sending a lot of supplies from, buying at Costco and Target. We're buying and sending it to Israel because the reservists came back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of the reservists came back to Israel. They got 130% call back when normally a reservist gets the reserve when they call out, let's say 100,000, only 50,000.
You were thinking of going back too.
Yeah, my wife and I decided that if they called the volunteers, the old volunteer soldiers, that we would go to come back. That means that it's really serious. And my wife and I decided, of course, I would go. And you have to do something about this point. But this is something that's very passionate for us. And so talking about the Torah, just to bring that back, we're writing it right now in Israel. We're going to have it finished throughout the year. And then we're going to donate it and finish it on one of the kibbutzim that the people were massacred. And we're going to do a big party for there and bring everybody back. Then we're going to bring it back to the U.S., and show that the entire world is behind and supports, and we'll never forget what happened on October 7th. Going back to our resilient riches. So that is something that we're working on. And riches is also about giving back and about impact and about what you do. And this is where we're going to find impact. But I want to hear a little bit about your story. I know I talk about struggles and I talk about challenges, but what was your defining moment in your life? Like, what was the thing that pushed you to be able to push others, and including us? And we never had a point in our life when we said, "Oh, Dad, we can't do it." And you went, what are you calling me for? Like, why are you even talking to me about this? Like, it was like almost
I don't recall.
Exactly. You block it out of your memory. But how come you were able to give that to your family? And where did that actually come from? And what was your moment in your life that you would never stop?
I mean, a lot of it comes also from Zadie, your grandfather also. I mean, he was also very resilient. He was in the Second World War. He became a CPA in Canada. And, like whenever you said to dad, let's get a color TV. Everybody has a color TV. Why don't we get one? He says, you have color TV, black and white. So he was always someone that, put up with what you have and enjoy it and don't complain. So his mother was like that too. My grandmother, my booby, was the same as that. I mean, never would put up with complaints. So it was passed down from generation. Now, listen, I have 6 kids that, we had a lot of financial strain over the years. His finances are always up and down, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but the mortgage still has to be paid. We had private school tuition. It was very, very overwhelming. So at a certain point, it became too overwhelming. And there was an organization in Englewood, in New Jersey, called Project Ezra that I was introduced to. Rabbi Yossi Stern, who's Lava Shalom, he's not with us anymore. But someone introduced me to him, and he changed it, and he changed everything around. Because when you're in that type of spiral and you're at the bottom, you need someone to help you. You can't just do it yourself, because you just don't think there's no hope left. You think there's no way out. There's no way to get out. So you need someone to lift their hand and lift you out, and to give you maybe a little bit more objectivity, because it's just overwhelming. And through that help over time, we were able to pull ourselves out and get back to where we are today.
Yeah, people always say the top is lonely and the bottom is lonely, but I actually disagree with that. I think the way to the top is lonely, and if you're somebody who never sees a ceiling, the entire path is lonely, and on the way to the bottom is lonely. And there is no such thing as rock bottom, because it just keeps getting worse. It can just get worse and worse and worse. And on the way down is loneliness, and you're always feeling that you're alone. But if you realize that you're actually not alone, and that there are people with you, and there are people who understand you and want to get you to the next level, which is something we love doing, is getting people to the next level that have this level of resilience. And resilient people are not necessarily super, super rich. Resilient people are successful, and they learn how to overcome obstacles, and they will be whatever they choose to be, whatever stars they want to reach and grab, they're getting there.
And I would say, one of the main things about what you're talking about is, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And that's what we do. We'll come to people and we'll say, let us help you. You don't have to be on this path by yourself. Whether you're at the rock bottom or you're at the top, you want to get higher, you want to have that resiliency, you don't have to do it by yourself. That's what we're here. That's what our target is. That's what we're looking to accomplish, is to help those people, because we went through it ourselves, so we know what it's like.
Yeah, and the big thing that we always spoke about was that, and you always said that at the beginning, when you were going through your financial struggles, you didn't talk to mom about it. Can you talk about that shift from not talking about it to actually speaking to that point?
So look, I think I did hit rock bottom, but I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was in it.
What was in the rock bottom?
Well, let's say again.
What was rock bottom for you?
So, I mean, that was rock bottom when I went to Project Ezra, and then we were sitting there, and it was just, and what he did, I think, was just show you where you are. Part of the problem is when you're on the way down, you want to hide it. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to have those money talks that I think Yair and I are going to talk about it at a future point, or even right now. But you don't want to have those money talks. You're ashamed about it. You're embarrassed about it. You want to hide it. You want to forget about it. So I don't want to speak to my wife. It's my job to provide support and to bring in the money. My wife was always the one that was looking after the home, the traditional roles. I was the one that bringing in the money, and I'm failing. I'm a failure now. What could be possibly worse than that?
Do you find that was your defining moment in life, when you decide that I'm going to get out of this?
Well, as you've pointed out, Yair, I've had I am over 60, and we could go on for a long time about all the different, that was one defining moment. I've had other defining moments. Some of them have been good defining moments.
What were they? What were those?
Well, I remember one. Look, we moved from Toronto. We wanted to move down to the United States. I felt that was a much better opportunity for us here. I got in the car. I drove down here. It was after spending some time with my father-in-law in Italy, going into the jewelry business, and driving down to New York to find a job. I found a job. I was on my own. I was living with my mother-in-law for a couple of months while you guys finished school. And I found a job working I was going to be in the jewelry business. I found a job at a colored stone dealer. I don't know if I ever told you this. Mm. And it was a struggle at the year. He was paying me like $250 a week, as a salary, until I started making some commission. So I remember finally, long story short, I stumbled into selling to Avon. Avon Products had a catalog. They would send it out for once a month with all their Avon ladies knocking on the doors. And they would order products for 50,000 pieces a month. And finally, I broke in there. And I remember walking on 6th Avenue to Sergio's office on 57th Street on the way back, where he approved a bag of small emeralds that I had. And from there, that was the beginning of a huge increase in my sales.
Yeah, I had my first real sale in my life. And this is part of the reason why you actually came and joined the firm, or my firm, is I finished a sale. I made about 200, total commission was about $275,000. I'm still very close to this client to this day. The total commission was $275,000. I split it with an older advisor. And let's say I walked away with about $140,000. And I walk out, and my whole life I've always been, oh, I can't afford this. I'm so nervous about money. I'm so this. And then I made it, and I went, I made it. Yeah. And that was it. I was like, I'm rich. And I thought 140,000, which I still think is a lot of money today. It's a hell of a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And I went, I'm done. And it's like something opens up in your life, and you just realize it's amazing when you finally break through. And that was a moment in my life where I went, I'm going to break through this. And another moment that I saw, that a defining moment in my life, was when I had a few, when I decided, so I grew up in a family of 6, and I had an older brother who was a big guy, and he was semi-popular, and he mumbles a lot. He mumbles a lot. But I remember that I was always overshadowed. I'm not
gonna like you said that.
I don't care. It's fine. He has weak knees. I felt overshadowed when you come from a big family. That's really what happens. So I made a decision to do something different in Israel. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the army, and that's going to change me. That's something that I'm going to do. That's going to be unique, that nobody else can ever copy. Nobody else can ever do. And all of a sudden that's going to be something that defines me in my life. And I made the decision. I remember I never smoked a cigarette before. I never have smoked a cigarette in my life. And I pull out a cigarette, I'm about to light it, and I go, no, this is not me. And I throw the cigarette in the ground. And I'm like, I'm not going to be this guy. That's ridiculous. What is this guy? And I all of a sudden, my everything changed, because I did something that was different than everybody else. And I had something that was different. And from there, it all rolled. And I love difference. I love being uncomfortable. I love being out of my comfort zone. And I was able to use that energy to fuel me in life. And that's where a part of my resilience comes, is that I choose to go into the path less traveled by. I've been age discriminated countless times. I've been told I'm too young, I'm too this, I'm too that, you're Jewish, you're not, you're whatever, you're privileged, all this stuff. And I've always gone, it doesn't matter, because I'm unique. I've done something a little different in my life. And I had this and to not drill down on this point, I had this very interesting wrestling coach when I wrestled. And he said, you're very skinny, you have a big head, but what you can do is one thing.
We had a friend that used to call him Big Head.
Yeah, it wasn't very nice, but
he's not a nice guy.
Yeah, very rich, but not nice.
Big Head.
So he used to say to me, you know what would be really good? If you're skinny, you have a big head, but you know what you need? You can do some pull-ups. So he said, every day do pull-ups. And that was something that I was very proud of. So I started doing 1 pull-up, 3 pull-ups, 5 pull-ups, 10 pull-ups. And I started having conversations with other people when I would wrestle, because I always lost at the beginning. And they're like, how many pull-ups can you do? Oh, I can do 5. And I was thinking, oh, I can do 8. So then you realize, oh, this is actually he's not bigger or better than me. I can do more than him. And it builds your confidence, and using exercise as something as part of your confidence, something that you can hold unique, was really, really powerful for me. But I want to go to one thing and talk about your values as a human being. I'll go through my values as a human being. If you can label, and there's games to understand people's values, and we don't really have to play it today, but can you tell us your top 5 values? Sure. And I'll tell you mine.
So people might see a deck of cards on our, you might think that we're gonna take a break and play some gin rummy or poker, but this is actually a value.
I don't think anyone plays gin rummy anymore. I don't think that's.
Why can't you play gin rummy?
Nobody knows what gin rummy is.
Everybody knows what gin rummy is.
People know what TikTok is. People don't know what gin rummy is.
Gin rummy is a game of cards. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
I could easily teach you. Mom plays it with the kids.
Yeah, Mom, I'm sure doesn't know how to play it properly, but
she makes up the rules as she goes along. Anyway, this says a values card deck. Yeah, Yair and we became BFAs. You can ask us what that is at a later date.
We're still figuring it out. It means that we can give financial coaching and call it therapy, but whatever.
With values. And so what you're supposed to do is go through this deck and you end up with your top five values. It doesn't mean that that's not your only values. That means that's the ones that are the most important to you. So my ended up top 5 being was health. At a certain age when I have to worry about that, I go to the gym 3 times a week. My oldest son has a gym. I go there. I can't train with him. He's too expensive for me.
Rock solid abs for anyone who's watching.
Yeah. I lost some weight lately, so that's good. So health is very important, especially whatever issues a person could have, especially at this age is getting more. Wealth, as we've talked about, I've gone through my ups and downs, and it's very difficult to think about going down again at this stage, just because it's just too difficult to think about. I'm obviously an Orthodox Jew, so faith isn't very important to me. That goes along also spirituality, which to me are 2 different things. Faith is one thing. Faith is just the knowing of, is the belief in the unknowable. Spirituality is a feeling that I have of being close to God. We don't need to get into that, but those are 2 different values to me. And the last one is meaningful work. I mean, I can't be bored. I am looking for that challenge. I need things, I need to have that challenge and to feel like I'm contributing every day.
Nice. So mine my 5 are health, which is a combination of physical health and eating clean and what's inside, but also mental health. We do have family that suffers from mental illness, and my wife's side, my side, and it's something that not just how many push-ups can I do, but it's also keeping your mind straight and keeping your mind clean and keeping your mind healthy is such a big part of our life.
Well, a lot of resiliency is mental resilience.
Absolutely, and you have to train your mind for it. Wealth is something that I enjoy. It's not just about money. I don't do things for the money. I do things to build wealth, to build assets, and I find wealth as part of building a better family. And I really view that as riches. If in that regard, integrity. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I hold myself to a very, very high accountability of myself, accountability for my friends, my family, my clients. I put loyalty for me, loyalty to my faith, loyalty to my community, loyalty to my family, loyalty to my spouse, loyalty to my clients and my religion and my children. And the last one is independence, because if you know the Klymans, we never like to be told what to do. And there's nothing about being free and being independent, being able to give unbiased love and unbiased advice, that you're not controlled by other people, you're not reliant on other people, and we like to be in ownership of our lives. And that's really what we're trying to impress on people. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about our values. We're going to talk about values that matter to us. We're going to be talking about health. We're going to be talking about wealth. We're going to be talking about spirituality. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about loyalty. We're going to talk about how to be free. And we're going to talk deep and talk to people and find out what really makes them tick, how their values can relate to your values, and how your values can help build you and allow you to be more successful than you ever thought possible. So take a listen. Thanks for coming in, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for coming to Resilient Riches Podcast. We'll see you next week.
See you next time.